Hi everyone, I'm Paulette Morrissey from Tulip Square, and this week we're going to be working on a real simple block called Bear Paw or Bear Claw, and I'm just going to show you a couple of variations on this very simple block and how quick and easy it can be to make without wasting a lot of fabric. And we've got a couple different variations that I'm going to show you. So there you go. So let's head over to the sewing machine and we'll get started. Okay, for the Bear Paw blocks, I'm going to show you 3 different variations. We call one of them the Bear Paw, one of them a maple leaf, and one of them a Snazzy Square. So we're going to start with the Bear Paw. You've got one big square, and all of these pieces and dimensions and everything and the amounts you'll need are all on a PDF in the description below if you are inclined to make this pattern. All right, I'm going to start with, on this Bear Paw, I'm going to start by drawing a light line on the back of these 2 pieces diagonally, because we're going to sew on each side of that line. So we end up with 2 really nice squares. So make sure your line is very accurate, point to point, and make sure you can see it, that you draw it in something you can see. Now I'm going to pair that up with my 2 darker squares of the same size. I'm going to sew on each side of that line I drew. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side. Now once you've sewn on both sides of that line you drew, you're going to cut along the line you drew. And that gives both pieces their 1/4 inch seam. And then you press these open and you've got 2 perfectly nice identical squares. So I'm going to do that with that one. I'm going to cut this one. I'll go press those open. I'll be right back. Now I've got 4 nice little squares like this. And unless it says otherwise in a pattern, I always like to press towards the darker fabric of the 2, just because you can see through. You can't really tell right now, but sometimes if it's a dark fabric pressed onto a light fabric, you can see through it, especially once you put white batting or something behind it. It's a little more visible. So I like to press always towards the dark unless there's some reason you can't. Okay, so I'm going to press in pairs, but they're going to be opposite. I'm going to press these 2 together, stitch these 2 together right here along this edge, and I'm going to stitch these 2 together along this edge so they're opposite each other. Okay, now I've got 2 pieces like this. And then I'm going to take 1 small square of the same background color, and I'm going to stitch it to one end of this. I'm going to put it right onto here. So now I've got this piece sewn to that little square, and now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to sew it to this bigger piece right to here. And you've got to make sure you keep the direction of your triangles correct, because you want to sew it to here. You don't want to sew it to here, because what we're trying to do is put it like so. Okay, so you have a bear claw. So I'm going to sew this to this right here, every single seam. So now I'm going to sew this to this right here. And there's our first bear claw block done. Now there's all kinds of variations on bear claw blocks. You can have, this can be 2 colors cut diagonal. There can be 2 colors here, or there can be a corner missing here, all different things. It's just a very popular pattern, and it's got lots of variations. And I'm just going to show you 3. So that was our traditional bear claw. Okay, so this next one is called the maple leaf. And if you make it in different colors, it makes a neat autumn leaf. It makes almost a cute Christmassy one if you make it red and green. But what you need is a light color for your background and your leaf color or whatever you're going to have for your front. So I'm going to start by drawing the light lines on the back of these 2 pieces again. And I'm using a little leafy pattern fabric for the background. I thought it's kind of cute with a maple leaf. No, and I'm going to sew on each side of that line. And then I'm going to cut them down that center line that I drew after I've sewn on both sides. You can see I've stitched on both sides of the seams. And I'm going to go press these both. So you get two halves that are the same for each square, like this, and I'm going to press them all to the dark green. Now I'm going to take one of these green squares that they're slightly smaller, that you've got 4 of for each square, and I'm going to take 2 of the background squares, and once again you can either draw a line on these diagonally or you can just lay them on here. I'm just going to lay them on here, and I'm going to sew. Here, I might as well show you. Kind of easier to do it this way. I'm going to sew the diagonal line right along here. Now this time I did not sew on both sides of the line I drew. I just sewed right on the line. And then I'm going to cut off this excess corner here. And then I'm going to move this. I think I'm just going to press that open. Now this time I'm pressing towards the dark. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this other one. I'm going to put it in the corner. And you can draw the line again if you want, or you can just eyeball it up. If you've got some line on your sewing machine you can follow, go ahead and do that. Now normally you might think you'd press this away from the center just because there's less bulk, but on this one I'm pressing it toward the center for 2 reasons. One, because the darker fabric is in the middle, so you want it always towards the dark when you can, and secondly, because it raises up that center green thing, and that's the stem of your leaf. And if it's a little more raised up than your background, that's a good thing. Better than the background being raised up. Okay, so now you've got this square, and you're going to sew it to one of these, and then you're going to sew these other 2 green squares to each other. Now I've got this little corner with the stem, so I'm going to put this here. So that's the beginning of your leaf, and I'm going to sew these 2 together along this seam. And making sure the seam is nestled together nicely right here. Now I'm going to take 2 of these. We've got 4 of these. We're going to sew 2 of them together like this. And so they're opposite each other. Okay, like so. So we're going to sew these 2 together along this seam, and these 2 together along this seam. So they're opposite. Now you've got 2 pieces like this, plus your piece like this. So these are going to go here and here. So what you do is you take one of these and sew it to your square right along this seam. And this other one needs a square up here to be the corner of the block. So that one just goes right here, and we're going to sew that on right here. And now we're going to sew this to here. Last seam to here. Line up our seams nicely. And there you have an autumn leaf and your bear paw. And now I'll show you one more that we call Snazzy Squares. It's also very simple. Start by doing 1/4 inch seams on both sides of your 2 largest pieces, paired up with your dark pieces. And then we cut that along the line we drew. I'm going to press these open. I'm going to sew 2 together like that, and 2 together opposite that, and 2 like that. Go here, and sew here. 1/4 inch seams. Now when you make sure that you've sewn all your triangles together correctly, you will always have 2 things like this. If you're not sure, just picture it. It should look like a kind of a Christmas tree. So you've got 2 like that, and then when you turn them like so, there's your little claws or whatever. Now you're going to sew 2 of your blue pieces together. Just along the side seam. And this could have been cut as one long one. It just isn't worth bothering to cut one long piece for one pattern, for one block. And then I'm going to pair the other blue one up with a white one of the same size. And then you will have one white one left over for this corner. I'm just going to sew these 2 pieces into a square, making sure. Now I'm going to sew this piece to this one, just like so, down this edge, and I'm going to sew this piece to the front of this one, just down this edge. And all that's left to do is sew these 2 pieces together right here. So now you have 3 variations on the same pattern. And remember, there are other variations where you can have a line through the middle. You can have one where there's nothing in here at all. It's just kind of a fun pattern. It's quick and easy. And the only thing you ever have to remember is keeping your triangles going the right directions when you're sewing them together. So that's all there is to the bear paw with its variations. You got a bear paw, a maple leaf, and a snazzy square. And so I hope you enjoyed that quick little video on how to make the bear paw blocks. Their little variations. I kind of like the leafy one myself. And if you want the dimensions and the pieces and everything that you need to make these, they're in the description below. There's a PDF you can download, and of course it's free. And also don't forget that on every Saturday when we have a pattern video for something that is not a free pattern, like one of our runners or toppers or placemat sets or something, it is free for the first 24 hours. When we post it at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, it will be free for 24 hours. So be sure you watch for those just about every other week in between our blocks and other good things. Okay? So I hope you have a good week. Happy sewing, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.